Hey guys, welcome to the 2018 BMW M4 CS or Club Sport. This is the first press car that BMW UK have ever given me, so it's not a bad start, is it? It's taken long enough to be fair, but when I was offered one of these, I obviously jumped at it, and I didn't just jump at the chance of having it for a week. I thought rather than waste a week sort of poodling around London or surrounding sort of, you know, roads and stuff that I do a lot of my videos in, I thought why not take it to the Alps? It's beginning of April, it's warming up, so I'm actually in Lake Annecy today. I've driven around about 1,000 miles to get here via my auntie's house in the Ardèche, and that's a good thing because it's given me 1,000 miles of absolutely mixed driving to get used to this car, to see what it's all about. Because, you know, what is the CS all about? We know it's costing roughly £25,000 more for an equivalent DCT M4 competition package, and that's a lot of money. Now, what do we get for that extra 25 grand? Well, first and most noticeable is the bonnet from the fabulous GTS. So it's a carbon fibre bonnet, it's beautiful. It's about 25% lighter than the regular M4 bonnet, but it's made out of carbon. It's got a massive big induction vent in there. It just looks mega, it looks beautiful, it really sets the car off. So that's where a lot of the money has gone. The rest of it, so we got a lovely set of forged alloys, staggered, so we got 19 on the front, 20s on the back. Obviously the fronts are narrower as well, as they are with all rear-wheel drive BMWs. We have got a nice big carbon fibre lip spoiler on the back. We've got a stripped out interior, so we've lost the door cards, we've lost things like the armrest in here. We've even lost things like dual climate control. We've still got air conditioning, as it were, but not climate, so it's like being in a 116i or something with the basic dials on it and stuff. But it works, it's fine, you know, it's if it's going to save a bit of weight and give us a bit more drivability in a car like this, then why not get rid of it? Now, this one lists basic in the UK at about 91, but this particular car has got a few extra options that brings it up to about 100,000. And one of those major options, and the only one really worth talking about, is the carbon ceramic brakes. Now, carbon ceramic brakes have got better and better, by which I mean better and better for road cars, so you don't need sort of to heat them up. That's a bit of a myth now. They work straight out of the box. In fact, I don't think I've touched these in the last 20 minutes, and you hit them and they're just mega. That was ABS triggering immediately, so really, really strong. One thing I must point out though with these carbon ceramics is, and I noticed this on a few RS6s I've had with a very similar setup of brake, if you've been on the motorway for a while and it's raining, just be sure to sort of brake check yourself almost, or clear the brakes before you actually need them, because somehow there's a build up of water or something on there. When you go for the brakes after 20 minutes of driving the motorway with rain, there's nothing there initially, and it's quite a scary feeling, especially if you're coming into a roundabout or something you have to slow down. So just remember that if you get carbon ceramics, they don't like not being used for long periods of time in the rain. So what else has this car got? Well, one of the main standout things that I read on spec sheets and on reviews that I've looked at online and on Evo and stuff is the fact that it has fantastic Michelin Cup 2 tyres. Now, unfortunately, this car has Michelin Pilot Super Sports, so it's quite frustrating. Now, I love Super Sports, I love all Michelins, but I think the biggest fault of the M4 competition package is its lack of traction. Now, this car comes with a bit more power, about 10 brake horsepower more, but about 10% more torque, and a lot of that feels mid-range to me, and it didn't really need that mid-range torque. That's the biggest fault of the standard M4 and the M4 compact. So in this particular car with Super Sports, it's literally in Sports Plus with a throttle mapping, it's almost undrivable, especially in the wet. So I'm gutted to say the least that it doesn't have Cup 2s, because that was the main reason I came down here chasing the sunshine, was so that I could push the Cup 2s. I've just come off the back of the Shmee trip, the Ring Wing Ting tour, where I was in the GT8 Cup 2s, the GTR Cup 2s, the 675 LT had Trofeo R's, and of course this GT3's got Cup 2s, so I was used to those tyres. And again, it's a bit of a myth that those don't work in lower temperatures and stuff. They don't like really cold temperatures and wet, but once you get some heat into them, they're mega, and out here they would have just been fantastic. And I'm sure they transform this car, or even a normal M4 for that matter. So it is hard. This is going to be a slightly odd review, you know. It's not the one I was after. It's exactly the car I was after. It looks mega in this lime rock grey. I just think it looks fantastic, and the positive response I've been getting on social media has just been off the scale. You know, people have been loving this car, loving its looks, and rightly so. I just think it is just mega. It really is. And if there's one thing that can sort of you could sacrifice that 25 extra grand for, it is the way this thing looks. Now the competition pack looks great, but this is just another level. These wheels especially, I'm not a fan of the 666 wheels. I just think they're a bit messy and a bit, I don't know. These are very simple, but you can buy these wheels as a spare part. You can buy a lot of things from this car, and let's face it, yes, it's a bit lighter than the competition package, but only about 35 kilos. Now, when you look at its sort of competitors, I guess if you could go out and actually buy yourself a Porsche 911 GT3, as in walk into a showroom, order it and pick it up in 2 months' time, then I don't think they would sell any of these cars. You know, to be frankly honest, like for an extra 10 grand or so, you'd be in a GT3. Why would you not buy one of them? But the problem is you can't buy a GT3 unless you're, you know, super rich or you've got a massive Porsche collection already. So at 90 odd grand, it's got its own little marketplace. Now, yes, the C63S is a mega car, and that's a 20 grand cheaper car, and there's other cars available. You know, there's the RS5 again, which is awesome, but none of them are as focused and as poised as this car. This car is really, really good, and it becomes better and better the more you push it, just like the standard M3 and M4 of the F80 series especially. They don't like going slow. They do as a daily, but you know, the DCT box is a little bit jerky, and that brings me on to the settings that I have the DCT in. So you've got your M1, M2 buttons. So I've got my M1 button set. I have the steering in comfort because I think there's a little bit more feel and comfort. It's a bit lighter. I don't like the sports and the Sport Plus. It just gets too overweighted. I have the throttle in sports because again in Sport Plus it's just unmanageable. There's just too much mid-range sort of torque. When you mid sort of corner, especially slower corners, the back end just wants to come out all the time, especially on these super sports. Might be different on the Cup 2s, but I doubt it. Now, which setting do I have the gearbox in? Well, I have that in the middle setting, so number 2. And the reason I have it in number 2 and not number 3, which is the fastest, is because in number 3, when it changes so viciously that it actually causes wheel spin, which is not ideal in a car that already feels a little bit frisky. So in setting 2, it's just about right. Upshift and downshift. It's not perfect, but it's just about right. I wouldn't say it's any better than a ZF gearbox like the one in my M140 in that sense, but it probably is a bit more of a racy gearbox, and it does feel suited to this car when you really start pushing on. I think that's what the DCT is all about. It's a good box when you push on. Now, you've got a different exhaust system in this car to the M4 Compact, and it sounds a bit different. If anything, it sounds a bit quieter, and that's strange, I know, but I'm sure it does. But maybe that's because this car is brand new, you know, it was just running when they gave it to me. But now we're sort of coming into where the CS comes alive. And when you really start leaning on it, it just feels mega. Now, you've got to remember this is an M car, and that's what people, I think, are soon to forget about M cars. They're designed to be pushed. Yes, out on track or on a road like this, and it's very hard in this day and age to find a road like this where you can actually push the car and utilize it, because when you push the car and you start going above sort of 8/10, everything comes alive. The car really comes alive. It just feels great. It feels really well damped. It just feels mega. It really does. It feels pointy, but it feels like there's a good amount of weight in the steering and not too much. Everything just sort of comes together. Now, I do wish I was on Cup 2s through here, because I could certainly be pushing a fair bit harder. But then saying that, you know, how fast do you want to go in a road car? as I get stuck behind a Renault Scenic, a very typically French car. So let's back the pace down a bit. So what are we going to summarise here? What have we talked about? So we've got a car that has got a better ride than a standard M4 or an M4 compact, and I think a lot of that has got to do with the fact that there's more tyre on the front. There's less rear, more tyre, than 19s on the front, so we've got more tyre cushioning, and that definitely helps with the ride. It helps with the turn-in as well. It gives a little bit of pliancy to the front end rather than it being so stiff. So yeah, people get the wrong idea, I think, sometimes about really low profile tyres. They don't always work, especially on surfaces that aren't perfect, and this is case in point, this car. We need to get past this Scenic really, don't we? So we can have a bit more of a nice driving. Yeah, let's go for the overtake here. I mean, the torque, the pick up and go this car's got is just brilliant. And the turn-in is brilliant, and the back end comes out if you want it to a little bit. Now I've got it in MDM mode, which is sort of the Sport Plus for M cars, or the halfway house if you like, and the mode that BMW M basically say works very well on track, and it does work well. I have to say though, sometimes the MDM, you've got to be a little bit cautious, because sometimes it will just let the back end go and you're not necessarily ready for it, literally like it's turned all the systems off. So just be wary in MDM. It is there, but it's not always there. But I'm sure with the Cup 2s, it would be there, and it probably works better with the Cup 2s. It's probably calibrated for them as well. Oh yeah, it's great. It's really, really good. Cyclist. Ah, fuel gauge already. So talking of fuel, well, we've done some miles in this car. So I came over with my parents and we did some solid motorway miles, and it was actually pretty efficient on the motorway. You can see 30s at reasonable speeds, you know. But when you're pushing on, like any sports car, I mean, this thing's got 450 horsepower, you know, 0 to 60 in 3.9 seconds. So you can't expect miracle fuel figures, and I'm sure I'm probably averaging about 7 or 8 going up this big mountain, but it's worth every penny. It really is. And this is when, like I said, this is when M cars really sort of come together. And it's not just the CS, it's all of the M cars. You take them up here, and on these sort of roads, this is what they're designed for. This is when they really shine. And in fact, I was going along this very road, and the only reason I know about this road is because of Pete from Petrolhead Tours. And I came along here last summer in my modified or tuned M135i, and it was mega. But when you really start pushing, I mean, this thing's going to disappear, even against my new M140. This is what I go on about a lot on my channel. When you really push, these things come alive, and the M lights sort of start dropping away. But the question is, how often do you push this hard that you need an M car? You know, maybe 10% of my driving I want for an M car, but the other 90% of the time my M140 is as good, if not better sometimes, you know. Oh, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. And you can really use the torque in these cars. They've got loads of torque. Got paragliders on the right, pedestrians on the left. What a piece of road. Am I more impressed by the road or the car? I think a bit of both, if I'm being honest. So how do we summarise this car? Is it worth £25,000 more than a competition pack, a 2018 competition pack? Probably not, because you could do the wheels and put some proper tyres on a competition pack for what, £5 and it would be very close to this car, but you're never going to get the looks and you're never going to get quite that adjustability that this car's got. It's never going to feel quite the same, but it's going to feel 95% the same. So is that extra 5% worth that extra £25? I don't know. It's certainly going to be rare. They're not built in limited numbers, but there's not going to be too many of them out there. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. But this to me is definitely the best BMW M car on sale today, for sure. In terms of an actual M car, I'm sure the M5, I haven't driven it yet. I haven't been invited at any of the launches, but I'm sure the M5 is mighty, but at the end of the day, it's nearly 2 tons and it's just not going to compare on this sort of road, you know? It's just not. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I've certainly enjoyed coming down here to the Alps and being able to push this car properly, taking it to a place where it should be taken. You know, this car doesn't belong on Sloane Street. It doesn't belong in a car park being revved or in a body shop getting wrapped a stupid colour. It's designed to come down here and be thrashed around the Alps on some great roads with no one around and these beautiful views that I can just catch in my peripheral vision just while I'm focusing on the road ahead as it just winds back down this mountain. Guys, please give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video and make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Please share it as well. Pass this video on to anyone that you know might have a M car, be looking at getting an M car, because I think it deserves to be shared. But maybe I'm biased. Until next time, guys, take it easy.